We acknowledge this land that we meet on today is the traditional lands for the Kaurna people and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the custodians of the Adelaide region and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still as important to the Kaurna living people today. We also pay respects to the cultural authorities of Aboriginal people visiting or attending from other areas of South Australia and Australia present here. So today's session we're going to look at Class Notebook, and Class Notebook is a special type of OneNote that lives within a class team. Now I know some of you might be working with just one screen today, and this is quite a hands-on session. So if you are unfortunate enough to just be working with one screen, the handy tip we like to mention is that if you're on a Windows machine, you can press the Windows key and the left or the right arrow, and that allows you to split your screen so you can see what I'm doing on one half and you can work in the other. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing this presentation and instead jump right in and share my screen. Okay, so before we dive deep into OneNote, I just want to understand which version of OneNote people are using. So the one you see here is a similar layout to what you might see in Windows 10 if you're using Windows 10. Or if you're using the web, this is the web version. The other version is the desktop version, which looks like this. So one has tabs coming across the top, and the other has sections and pages coming down here. I'm just going to open a quick poll, and if you can just indicate which version you're using, then I can do the rest of the session in one that helps most people. So where it says Windows 10, that's the one that looks like this. Thank you, those people that have responded. We're a small group, so you can also put it in the chat. Okay, Windows 10. Okay, so it looks like most people are using the Windows 10. So we might use the Windows 10 look today for this session. Susan, if you don't have OneNote installed, you can also use the web version, which is what I'm using here. I'll quickly show you how to access that so that you can join in with the rest of the webinar as well. So if you've got a browser open, and you go to the EdPass portal, and I'll just pop the link in the chat in case you don't have that to hand. You can access OneNote from this nice handy tile here. So if I click on that, it will bring me into OneNote, and I can see all the OneNotes that I have access to. So if you don't have it installed and you're using it this way, yours will look similar to the Windows 10 as well.
Sorry, I'm lost. Which tile?
Yep, so are you in the EdPass portal page? Mm-hmm. Yep. If this is what you see, if you scroll down, you'll see a purple OneNote tile here, and that's the one that will take you to OneNote.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so we're going to work in the web version, which is similar to Windows 10. We are going to do some very hands-on learning today, but before we do jump into that, I want to do a bit of a tour around what a class notebook looks like, so you understand what all the different sections are before we create our own and look at our own. So when you create a class notebook, it has quite a rigid structure, which is different to a OneNote that you might just create for yourself. Microsoft creates all these sections down here for you automatically because of the type of notebook it is. And these are all quite special. So the welcome section comes in, and I always like to put in the welcome section things that I'm going to access all the time. So if I'm a primary teacher or even a secondary teacher, I might put in here a page around my class agreements or my class norms, so that I can quickly access that, and the kids know, or I know I can bring it up straight away if I need to. The collaboration space here, that's a section which has special permissions which allows everyone that is a member of your class team to edit and use this space. So in this example here, I was doing a unit of work with my students. Let's just close that and scroll across. And I wanted the students to add in what they knew about deserts before we started our science unit. So you can see here, I've got a table, and each student has filled in some things, some better than others, or that might have been me testing as well. So the collaboration space is like that. One really nice thing about the collaboration space is you can also, what is it? You can also see who has contributed what. So down the side here, you can see lots of names. These were students in my class, and they contributed the different sections in here. So you can track who has participated. The next section is called the content library. And this section students can't edit. So this is the section where, as a teacher, I might be putting the content of our learning and my lessons in here. So for example, if I go to maths, I might have up here some instructions. This was a particular game that we were playing in class for fractions. And then because OneNote has a drawing function, I've got this out the front, and I can edit and add some text, and my students can then go and access that later if they need to, but they can't delete, change or edit any of these spaces. They can just see what is available in the content library. This section here, the teacher only section, doesn't appear for students. It's only for you as a teacher or any owners of the team. Teachers can see this. So this section here is a planning space. So you can use it for, I'll just jump into weekly plans. You could use it for planning out your timetable, and then you've got it all nicely in a place. Or you could also use it for preparing the content that you want students to be able to access before you shift it into the content library. So for example, here I've worked out all my spelling for the whole of term 2, but I don't want all those showing in the content library for my students straight away. So I've prepared them here, and then I can move them to the content library when I'm ready for my students to access that content. This space is quite nice if you're co-teaching, because each teacher can have their own section, but you can also see what other teachers are planning. So if you were working with specialist teachers as well, they might have a section in here. Now the last section here is a bit misleading. This is a test team, so I've only got one student in this team, this person here, Belinda Pearson. But if I was in a class under the teacher only section, I'd see all my students' names appear here. Now, as a teacher, I see all my students, but as a student, if I go in, I only see the folder with my name. So this is a really safe space for Belinda to work on her work, and for me, if I want to add comments as a teacher. I can access it, co-teachers can access it, but Belinda's the only other person that can access this space. So it's a really nice way to for students to be able to share what they're working on with their teacher in a safe space, and teachers to give feedback. Okay, so that's a bit of a tour of the different sections. We're now going to move into creating a class notebook to have a bit of a play around in ourselves, and I'm going to show you how to create sections and pages and some of the tools that are helpful when you're teaching. So in order to create this class notebook, you actually need to do it through a class team. So for this next bit, we're going to hop out of OneNote, if you were in OneNote and following along with me, and we're going to jump into Microsoft Teams. So you can do that through the desktop app, or you can continue with your browser. I'm going to use my desktop app, and I'm going to create a brand new team because I'm using this as my safe space to play in. So to do that, I'm going to click on Join or Create Team up here, and then Create Team. Now, Teams has recently changed, so if you're still using the old Teams, you haven't swapped to the new Teams, your layout might look slightly different. You'll get a pop-up appear in the middle of your screen. That's fine. If you just click on the class option, and if we can all click on the class option, you'll get a different message here as well. What we want to do is just create this test team with our notebook so that we can have a bit of a play. So I'm going to call this team my site code, and I can always keep this as a place where I can play, or I can delete it after and click create. If you can just give me a virtual thumbs up, or if you're on camera, a personal thumbs up is fine as well. Once that's created a team for you, that would be great. Thanks, Suzanne. Thanks, Bianca. Thanks, Lynn. Perfect. Shoot. And Tanya, are you just able to give us a little indication whether you're okay? Okay, hopefully Tanya is following along. We've got our class team. It's a brand new team, so it won't have anything set up. The first screen you get has this set up class notebook, so you can click on there to set up the class notebook. But if you don't see this, you can also go to the class notebook section here. And when you click in there, there's the set up OneNote class notebook here as well. So we want to go to that tab and click on set up class notebook, and we're going to choose from a blank notebook. Now when you click on that, you have all these bits that Microsoft is going to create for you in the back end, and there's not anything you can do at this stage to change any of that. So we just click next. You could, if you want to, change this. So this is what sections are created for each student in the class. So you might not want quizzes, for example, or your school might have a policy where there's no homework. So you could alter those, but we're just going, well, I'm just going to keep the default for this training session today. And then that's going to take a little bit of time to set up. Hopefully Tanya's going okay. Microsoft puts in a whole lot of pages in here for you to look at, which do give you some information, but probably you don't need your students to see these. So we're going to delete them. Okay, perfect. So we might just push on. Again, in Teams, you don't have much of a window to work in your OneNote. So I do recommend that instead of working within Teams, you go to this editing button up the top and go open in browser or open in desktop app so that you've got the full screen to work with. So I'm going to go open in browser, and then that's going to take me to OneNote on the web, or if you've got OneNote installed, you could click on OneNote app instead. So I'm in here, and now I'm going to start using the OneNote. So the first thing we're going to have a look at is what this is here, and this is a page. Notice over here I've got the name of the page, Welcome to Class Notebook. I can't edit that in this section, but if I change that here, you'll see that the name of the page has automatically renamed over here. So the names you see here are what is above the line in OneNote or our class OneNote. This I don't want to keep, so I can just highlight or Control A on the different sections. So I'm just going to highlight them all and delete it. And then I might use this as a welcome message for my class. Okay, now in this welcome section, I did mention earlier that this is where I put things that I'm going to use all the time with my students. So I don't need this facts page, because again, this is about my class notebook and my students probably don't need that. So instead of deleting this content like we did in the welcome page, I'm going to right click on there and go delete page. Now, class notebooks are slightly different from OneNote in that if you delete pages or sections in a class notebook, they're deleted forever. If you delete them in a personal OneNote, you can retrieve them from the recycle bin, but in a class notebook, they're deleted forever. So you will get a warning come up. So please don't ignore that if it's something that you've deleted by mistake. But in this case, we definitely want to delete that page. So I'm going to click on permanently delete. But I don't want to add another page in this section. So down the bottom here, it's got add page. And if I click there, it's going to put in an untitled page. And I'm going to call this one class notes. And there I've got my first page. Now this is quite different in the other OneNote. So I'm just going to hop into that for one moment to show you where the new pages are in that one, just in case you're using that other one in the future. Just hop in there. So the add page is over here. It's quite a different layout. Okay, we're not going to add anything at this stage to that page, but we are now going to go into our content library over here. So this is the section that me as a teacher can edit, but my students can't edit, but they can access. And instead of just creating a new page, we want to create a section in here so that we've got our resources and units of work organised and easily accessible for our students. So see how welcome is highlighted here for me? If I clicked on add section down the bottom now, a new section would come up here. So I've actually got to click into the section where I want the new section. So here I've opened Content Library, I've clicked on using this content, and now I can click on Add Section. I'm going to give it a name. So just for today, I might call this Term 1 Getting to Know You. So there's my section. Again, if I don't want this Microsoft section, just like with pages, I can delete them by right-clicking and going to delete section. Again, I'll get that warning because it's a class notebook and not a OneNote saying I'm deleting it permanently. And now I've got a section here. it will create one page for you automatically. So let's call this About You. And then you can go ahead and create some other pages as well. We are going to create another couple of pages in this new section because I want to show you about subsections, which are quite handy as well. So let's go ahead and click Add Page and Add Page. We can keep them as untitled in this demonstration, that's fine. And we're going to make them subpages. So to do that, I can click and I can't click and drag in this version. I can right click and go and make subpage, and then you'll see it's indented a bit. And if I make the second one a subpage as well, it makes it easier to find where you are in that section. If I add a new page here, it's going to keep it in that subsection. And I want to right click and go promote subpage if I want to make it in line with here. Now Windows 10 will also give me a little drop down. The web version isn't giving me that drop down, but Windows 10 you should be able to collapse and open those pages a bit like a concertina. So About You, and let's call this next section or pages section My Favorite Things. Okay, whoops. There we go, My Favorite Things. Okay, another thing about sections is you might be one of those teachers that likes things color coded, especially when we're working with students. It helps if you make a color coding scheme that fits in with or makes sense for your students. So you can, once you've created the section, right click on the section and go to section color and change it. So for example, I used to have all my literacy type tabs or sections in one color, all my numeracy in another. My specialist teachers had theirs in a certain color so my students could easily find them if they needed to. Okay, so we've got these pages. At the moment they're pretty boring because they're blank, so we're going to add some content to them. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add a table, and to add a table it's insert at the top and then table here. Now I will just warn you that tables in OneNote aren't very pretty, but they do work for things like organising your students to all contribute at the same time if you're in the collaboration space. Could use colours. Yep, you could use the colours of the Australian curriculum, and that would help other teachers as well as your students. And if you were consistent throughout your school, that would probably help your students as well. Okay, so we've got a table in here, and just like in those other software that you might be used to using, you can change your shading, you can insert, you can hide borders. You can't merge table cells in OneNote though. So it's a bit, it isn't as nice as doing tables in Word or Outlook, for example. So we've got a table in. The next thing we're going to add, and in the handout I've said to do activity 2, we're going to skip that because we're going to move on to adding some content because we're quite a small group. So the next thing we want to add is a file printout. Now a file printout is simply turning a file we have into an image that is on our OneNote page. So I've just got some documents that I've already got here that I want to insert. You can use whatever document you have to hand, and to insert it I can simply drag it across and then I'll get a pop-up asking me what I want to do. So, except this is not behaving how I thought it would be because I'm doing it on the web. So let's cancel that. You should get one that pops up if you're using the desktop app that says, do you want to insert it as a file printout? I'm going to go in and do it this way instead though. So the insert tab up the top, file here, and insert file printout here. And let's see if we can get to that. We might just put in a picture instead. If I can find a file, let's try something else. Apologies for this. Let's see what that gives us. Okay, so this has put the file in. I've got it here, which means that if students wanted to download this file themselves, they could click on here and download a copy. But it's also taken each page of that PDF and put it in as a separate image. If I don't need every page as an image, I can just click and delete. But it's really handy if I've got a worksheet that I want students to be able to annotate over the top, or as a teacher, I've got it out the front. One thing to note is that these images at the moment move around on the page. So if I am wanting to annotate over the top, what I like to suggest people do is right click and go set picture as background, which now means this picture isn't going to move. So if I write over the top, my writing is going to stay where I want it to be on the picture. Okay, so that's file printouts. Another thing you can add, which is especially useful when you're supporting students whose literacy isn't as high as the other students in the class, is you can add audio. I don't know if my web version is going to like this, but we give it a go. If you click on the audio here, we'll see whether it will use my microphone and click allow. It should start recording what I'm saying automatically into this page. It doesn't give you any flexibility to edit that, so it's recording everything I say. If I click on stop, it will save that file and then students can play it back. If I play it back, so if I click on there and press play, I should be able to hear back what I've said. If I do play it back and I don't like it, I can't edit it, as I said, so I just have to delete it by pressing delete and then re-record it. In the Microsoft 365 version, so not the web, and I think it's in the Microsoft Windows 10 version as well, you can also record video. So if you wanted to record a message to your students, you can directly in OneNote as well. And you can see now it's got my camera. It's automatically recording. It hasn't given me a countdown or anything. And if I click on stop, there it is there, my recording in there. So again, I can click and play it back. And if I don't like what it is, I can't edit it in OneNote. I just have to delete and re-record. Now, this is particularly powerful if I've got students that are doing their work that aren't heavily literate, that won't respond to written comments. You can do a quick video comment to them saying, hey, that's great, or have you thought about, etc. And then they can play that back as well. Okay. The other thing to note is that OneNotes can get very big very quickly. So I've got these images in here, but I've also got this embedded and my audio file embedded as well. So the larger the OneNote is, the longer it's going to take to open up on your device or students' devices, and the more time it's going to take to sync. So if you are wanting to do a file printout of a document that lives in the class team already, after you've done that file printout, I do suggest you delete that, and instead of keeping a copy of the file there, just adding a link to the file in Teams. I'm not going to go through how to get the link in Teams in this session, but I will follow up with a quick video, link to a video on how to get links in Teams if you're not sure how to do that. Okay, so the next bit we're going to have a look at is, if I've created this, how do I make a copy, or how do I move it to a different section? I should have really done this in the teacher only section, but that's all right. We might move it to the collaboration space instead, because maybe I want all my class to contribute into this table. So to do that, if I want to move the whole section, I right click on there. And it's not going to let me do it on the web version. So on the web version, let's just make that bigger. I'm just going to click and will it let me drag? I don't think it's going to let me do that. So I'm not going to be able to show you on the web version. In OneNote, the version you don't have, in order to move that, it's right clicking and going to move and copy. In Windows 10 is going to be similar. If you right click on the section, you should find a pop-up that says move and copy. Can you just give me a thumbs up if you've seen that in your version, the move and copy bit? Thanks, Suzanne. Tanya, I know you're not following, but hopefully you see it on yours. Okay, perfect. Just going to go back one. Oops, I'm going to go into the one that we're actually using. It's a new one, so I can't show you that either. Okay, you can't see it, Shu. I don't have access to the Windows 10 version, so unfortunately I can't demonstrate it to you. But I should have a video that can show you that afterwards that I can link to as well. So that's copying and moving a section. The other thing you can do is individual pages. So here it is the move and copy. And if I click on there, I've got access to the different bits in my OneNote. And I can click in where I want to move that page to and click move. If I click copy, it's going to leave this where it is and create a copy. Now, why would you do move instead of copy? You might do move if you put the page in the wrong place. Why would you do copy instead of move? As a teacher, if I have all my work in the teachers only space ready to go, that's when I would be going in and doing my move or copy and copy. And my computer's not cooperating today. Move and copy into that space so that I keep my clean copy with no notes attached to it. And then I've got my working copy over here as well. I don't think it's liking the fact that I'm logged in as someone else. So apologies for that. But that's how you move and copy files around. Okay, so in the insert table or tab, there's also a few more things that you can insert. You can insert a form directly in here, which will bring up this. You'll need to sign in, but then you can access any quizzes or forms you've created in Microsoft Form and drop them directly in. You can put in stickers. So when I gave that feedback to students in that example I had earlier, I went in and got a sticker, but you can put that in. You can also, in some of them, not all of them, edit the text as well. So that's really quick and quite fun for students. The Maths Assistant as well is one that's particularly good for students and teachers. Some people, when they first hear about the Maths Assistant, are a bit skeptical as to whether it assists students or helps them to cheat. It isn't so much about giving students the answer, but it's about helping them see how they can solve. So, for example, here, let's use this example that they've given us. So I'm just going to delete this section and type in x plus 3 equals 7. I'm going to select that equation with my lasso. Oops. Here we go. And then I can select what to do. So if I'm solving for x, it will give me the answer, but this is the powerful thing for students. I can click on show steps, and then it's going to give me some information about how that equation is solved. We've got this icon here, which is immersive reader. So if the student can't read that text, you can also click on here and it will read it out for them. But the other thing is you can generate a practice quiz. Now this won't work, I don't think, because I'm not signed into forms. But again, this is there to support the students so that they're not only trying one thing, but they can try lots of questions and see if they get the idea of how to solve it. So that's the maths assessment. In the Draw tab, you've got also lots of tools. So if you've got a touch screen device, this is brilliant for touch screens. If you've got the pen and you're using the touch screen here, you can just type and write. You've got a highlighter as well. If you find that then you can't type, you might just have to click on the type button and then that will give you back your text box to type. There's a range of pens. Again, the web version doesn't show me, but your Windows 10, you should be able to see a range of different pens. If I go into my view, you'll see something similar to this in Windows 10 with lots of different pen nibs that you can choose, and you can also in Windows 10 create your own color schemes and use rainbow colors and all sorts, which is really fun for students as well. And I think that's about it in the drawer. You might also see in there a text to shape. I'll go back into this one again because there's ink to shape and also ink to maths, which are available in Windows 10 as well. So there's more flexibility and more features in the desktop apps rather than the web version. Okay, so we've done the insert menu. We've had a look at the draw menu. Let's go to the view menu because there's a few things in here which are quite useful as well. So earlier I clicked on the show authors. So again, if you want to see who has done what, especially in the collaboration section, you can click on the show authors and it will tell you who's done what on the page. The lines is really helpful, especially if you're using OneNote in front of the class. So if you click on the lines, it will give that page lines. You can also change the color of the page. So again, if you've got students that work better or can read better with a certain color background, you can use the page color that suits that. In the desktop versions, you've also got a few more things that you can do. So there's a few more tabs that you would have access to, but there's also templates that you can use as well. I think in the OneNote 10, they're not in the insert, they're in the view tab, so they're handy as well. Page versions will let me revert the page to a different version. So if I click on there, it's back to that first one where I hadn't deleted my text. So again, that's handy if you go in and the page looks quite different to what you thought it would. You might be able to restore a previous version. And I think that was all I was going to talk about in the View tab. Now, Class Notebook might not be showing up as a section in your OneNote. If it isn't, you can install this from the Microsoft page. So again, I'll give you instructions on how to install that. In here, there's some really important things that you might want to use with your class. The first thing is distribute page. So that lets me send this individual page to a student's notebook. Now this is my test team with no students in there, so I can't show you in this one. I'm just going to go back into this, and I don't have my class one in there. So I can't show you the distribute page, but if you did click on that and you had students, you'd be able to send a page to their different section in their notebook. So let's send it to handouts anyway, and we won't see it because there's no students, but it will appear when I add a student to that class. So that's really handy for getting students' pages out really quickly so that they can work and edit on those pages. Distribute new section, again, lets me put a new section in my student book. And then I've got this copy to content library as well that I can use to put my work straight into content library. Review student work shows you which sections have had some editing in them. So I can quickly go in and see which of my students have used the class notebook without having to go into each individual student's folder to see that. And Reflect is a new feature that allows me to check on the well-being of students. So I can get them or I can choose which checking I'd like to do. It will add a link to there, and then this will show up in my class team. Okay, now we've just about come to the end of this session today. Were there any questions before I just show you some resources that you can access? Yeah, so if you haven't used OneNote before, it might look a little bit daunting because Class Notebook is a subset of OneNote, but all the things I've shown you, apart from the things about distributing, are available in just the plain OneNote. But again, you won't have these different sections here. You'll just have, if I go into a normal OneNote, you see this is a normal OneNote, and I've just got one section and I can just add them rather than having those collaboration, content library and teacher only spaces. Okay, so unless we've got any more questions, I'm just going to finish today's session off we've shown you some further resources. Now, I know some of you have been to my sessions or Lynn's sessions this week earlier on, so you might have seen these, but I'm going to show them again. So we've got the Educator Centre, which you can sign up to. This is a free service that Microsoft provides you with. And in the Educator Centre, there's lots of different resources that are specifically for teachers. If you go to the Browse All Educator Training, like I have and put in Class Notebook, you'll find some modules that you can work through that are to do with OneNote and Class Notebook that will further support you with using OneNote with your students. Our technology YouTube channel, we also have a playlist in here, which is on Class Teams and all the Class Notebook, and all the videos in here are actually using the Windows 10 version of OneNote. So like what the majority of people have been using today. Just on that, Microsoft is actually discontinuing Windows 10. So they're not doing any more updates to Windows 10. And it won't be available in the next year or so, which is why we're encouraging people to use the M365 version, which is the one that I showed you on our desktop instead. But most of these ones here are all using the Windows 10 because that's the one that we used to get teachers to use because it was a nicer, more friendly interface for students. And then the last place that we like to show you where you can go for help is our Microsoft 365 support and collaboration team. And in here, we do have a page on Class Notebook. So if you do have questions around Class Notebook and you are a member of this team, feel free to pop them in there and someone will answer your questions. So these links are all on the bottom of our handout that you would have received by email today, but I'm also going to just do a copy and paste so that they're in the chat for you as well.
Already putting them in there, we go.
Ah, perfect. And it looks like we finished slightly early. Best of luck for next Monday when the kids come back. Try and relax a little bit over the weekend if you have the possibility to, and stay tuned for further webinars that we'll be running throughout the rest of this year. But thank you for your time today and for joining. If you do have any questions, please feel free to use this support team or you can contact our team directly as well. And with that, I will stop the recording, but I'll stay online if you have any more questions.